views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Tell you later.
Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to Bronx Talk. If you are a driver in the Bronx, then you know that we have some serious road and traffic congestion issues. Whether you're on main highways like the Deegan, the Cross Bronx, or Bruckner, or on the Bronx River Parkway, or on interior streets like Williamsbridge Road or Southern Boulevard, or on the East River bridges, or the Whitestone, Throgs Neck, or Triborough RFK bridges, then you know that road conditions, construction, and traffic congestion are much more the norm than the exception. Will the elimination of toll booths, for example, help? And how about traffic remodeling on North Broadway or the Sheridan? Will that help? Tonight, to address all of these everyday but too often overlooked issues, we bring back to Bronx Talk an old friend who is the media manager of the AAA of the Northeast, Robert Sinclair Jr. Nice to have you.
Good to be here.
You know, I was thinking about trying to characterize what I'm going to attempt to do tonight, and I felt like it's like when people watch the weather person and they say it's going to rain, and then they blame the weatherman.
Yeah.
So, Robert, what is with our roads? What is going on out here? Everywhere you go in the Bronx, and I just, you know, in the back of my mind when I wrote that, I listed all the places, and I said, every one of those places that I have listed, I have been stuck in traffic on. Less so in the Cross Bronx, because I'm smart enough to know how to avoid it.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying.
It ain't just the Bronx either, believe me. You know, I live in Queens and drive to Long Island every day, and drive in Brooklyn. I have to go to Manhattan occasionally, even Staten Island. And
So-
it's busy everywhere. It's crowded everywhere.
So we won't blame you, but we
Well,
will
thanks.
ask you for a little explanation.
Sure.
Is it safe to say we simply have more cars than we ever had before?
Absolutely the case. Over the past 5 years, there have been an additional 125,000 vehicles registered in the city of New York.
Wow.
Yeah, most of them.
Let's just absorb that. 5 years, 125,000 vehicles.
vehicles. 2 million vehicles registered within the 5 boroughs.
And we have not kept pace with that kind of infrastructure.
No, well, in some cases we have. I mean, we know the bridges, the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, MTA bridges are very crowded, but they're practically all being rebuilt in some way, shape, or form, and all of them are having cashless tolling put in, and the gantries that have to do with that, and ripping down the old ones and what have you. But you've got.
And that's part of the construction problem.
That's part of the construction problem, or
It's going to be
part of the
it.
construction solution to the
Supposedly,
problem.
right.
Yeah, and you've got an additional 23,906 vehicles in the Bronx alone.
23,000.
23,000 over the past 5 years. Now, 23,000 might not sound like a lot, but line them up and they take up a lot of room.
A lot of room.
Yeah, and then you have to park them and you have to have them travel, so it's more
So
crowded.
we have a new Yankee Stadium right on the Deegan. You know, we've been down this road literally
Yeah.
before. The Deegan is an absolute mess. One would have thought if you were going to build a stadium, part of that would have been to say, let's add, roads or do the Deegan along with or before the stadium. Instead, we put up a new stadium, and the Deegan is an absolute mess.
Well, it reminds me, I think we're both old enough to remember the expression the slogan used to be on the side of the Con Edison vehicles. Dig we must
Yes.
for a better New York. And that's what's happening. The Deegan is being redone. They have innovated. Back in 2015, Governor Cuomo announced that they were speeding up the project by using precast concrete sections on the elevated part of the roadway between 138th Street and McCombs Dam Bridge. They're putting in additional lighting. They're improving the ramps, and it's entrance. It's only from on the northbound side from during that stretch. So they are taking some actions to try and alleviate the problems that come with the construction. But they're using concrete, and if you were to just cast the concrete in place, it takes 28 days for concrete to cure fully. And then you've got the vibration from the vehicles next door on the opposite lanes, and you've got weather and what have you that would retard that process.
So without delving into the specifics of the construction process, I've been in the Bronx a long time. It seems to me like it's taking forever. Now, maybe it's because I'm tired of being stuck in traffic in both directions. The roadway is just a mess. Are you satisfied, is the AAA satisfied that when this is done, that we will really have some alleviation, or it's just still going to be backed up because we have 23,000 more cars in the Bronx?
Well, it'll still probably be backed up, but the road will be much, much improved. And that will help to speed traffic. And we mentioned the cashless tolling. That will help as well in feeding the vehicles into and through these roadways. So it's going to get better, it just takes time. And remember, we have to maintain the flow of traffic in the meantime. Maybe not at the same capacity, reduced capacity for sure, but traffic still has to flow.
The Deegan, right now, 2 lanes coming southbound going onto the ramps, 2 lanes coming northbound going onto the ramps, and then those feed into the George Washington Bridge, entranceway, and they keep getting narrower. See, there's just no way. You said the ramps were being redone?
The entrance and exit ramps during that stretch will be redone.
And I don't want to put you on the spot. Do we know when it's going to be completed?
It was supposed to be completed 2017. It's 2017.
Okay.
We've got 6 more months.
We go down the Deegan to the Triborough Bridge, which I actually was just there the other day. You've got the Bruckner entering, you've got the people from the Deegan entering. There are actually some side streets coming from Bruckner Boulevard, which I noticed that it's desperately missing a red light over there because people are just like this. Then you get on there, and some are going obviously to Manhattan, and some going to Queens. How much can the cashless toll assist that process, or what happens there?
Well, it certainly assists the process. People no longer have to even slow down for the Easy Pass to be registered. And even if you don't have an Easy Pass, it's taking a picture of your license plate. And by the way, in my coming in today, I saw that going in the opposite direction. Those gantries.
On which bridge?
On the Triborough.
Okay.
RFK. Whatever they're calling it these days.
Well, the signs are not consistent. That's yet another issue.
Yeah, another thing.
The signs are not consistent. Some places they call it the Triborough, some places they call it the RFK, and some places they say Triborough RFK.
Can you imagine if you're an out-of-towner coming here to visit and having to deal with this?
That's why I live here, because I would never want to have to come from out.
But those gantries are in place, and they're well before the toll plazas, where the toll plazas used to be. They're actually in the Bronx on grade. They're down on ground level. So as you're on that ramp from the Major Deegan going into the Queens-bound roadway, those gantries are there, and they're in place and they're working. I was in traffic on the way here and got to sit and watch them.
I wasn't aware of it. So the arm on the
Gone.
is gone.
Gone.
That has to be relatively recent because I was there not too long ago.
Yeah. Well, they're also in place on Gil Hodges Bridge, Marine Parkway Bridge, and the Cross Bay Veterans Memorial Bridge.
The issue with the whole idea of the cashless toll, the one that I'm familiar with is on the Henry Hudson Parkway.
Right.
It seems to work well.
Yeah.
From an administrative point of view, is the city taking in enough money? Are they catching the people who go in without Easy Pass? Like, what's the status?
Well, I think they were in $2 million in arrears of people who did not pay, and it wound up with fines and surcharges and what have you going up to, I believe, $12 million that was owed from people that used that bridge and did not pay. Many of them out-of-towners. If you're a New Yorker and you go through cashless tolling, you don't have an Easy Pass, yeah, they're going to go after your registration, what have you. But there's no reciprocity as far as out-of-towners. That's a little secret to everybody that comes here. You can go across that bridge.
We're insular in the Bronx
right
here.
Yeah.
So when you say out-of-towners, it could be somebody from Connecticut.
Yeah, sure. Anybody but New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's not a great system.
Well, they're improving it because now those New Yorkers are subject to having their registrations. You can't renew your registration if you're in arrears for having not paid your tolls and going through with the cashless
So
tolling.
eventually they'll
get it. Yeah.
I have a little surprise video. It's about 12 seconds long because I want to talk. There's been a lot of talk of the people in the East Bronx. There's been a lot of talk about the Whitestone and the Throgs Neck, and we can talk about those backups. But this was shot on the entrance ramp to the Whitestone Bridge. The driver did not shoot it. It was
Queensbound?
Queensbound.
Okay.
And
Been there.
I just did it for fun. That's all. So,
Okay.
Lindsay, let's take a quick look at this.
Dash
There's no
cam.
audio to it, so we can talk.
Dash
while
cam
we're watching.
footage. Cross
So here it
Island
is.
Parkway, yes, all right. Left lane closed, construction ahead, yes.
Use left lane.
Left lane
Lane
closed.
closed. I was driving and I said, well, what exactly? So there you go.
I've seen that many times, and I've wanted to take a picture, but of course I'd be
Well, I had
distracted
somebody
driving
in the car and,
who was able to
she
do
took
that.
a-
Yeah,
a
that
picture of it.
that happens.
Now, you and I, going back many years when we had our morning show and everything else, we talked about signs and all that. And I remember there was a period of time where, I mean, maybe it was Mayor Giuliani or Mayor Bloomberg, I forget, or it could have been from the states, or probably could have been the governor. They redid a bunch of signs. What's the status of signs? We just complained about the Triborough RFK. Where are we at with
I
road
think
signs?
part and parcel with the signs was also lane markings and lighting, and the Cross Bronx Expressway was notorious at having poor lane markings
Well, of
and
course.
poor lighting, and probably, the years go by so quickly. Probably going back 6 or 7 years ago,
Right.
we did a survey and found about 45%
That's what I remember.
of the lights, yes, were not working.
Right.
The lights to provide illumination of the roadway.
And the signs.
Yeah, and the signs were confusing, old, faded, that kind of thing.
Not high on the
Yeah.
AAA list right now is signs, in other words, road signs.
No, I haven't noticed. That's perhaps a study that we need to do. But lane markings also, you know, a lot of the modern vehicles have lane keeping systems.
Right.
And they rely on cameras taking pictures of the lane markings. And on many of the roadways, they are non-existent. So you can't rely on that technology
goodness.
in our area for a
I
large part.
don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but because we need to do a whole other show. The remodeling of LaGuardia Airport, obviously it's created havoc on the Grand Central Parkway. Does the AAA like what it's seen so far? Are you concerned?
It will eventually will be wonderful. When they first started, we saw people, and I live in Astoria. I pass LaGuardia Airport twice a day.
Lucky you.
And I saw people parking. You know, they would be in a black car or a Uber or something, and they would get out onto the highway and walk
walk.
up
I've seen
and
it.
go across the ramps. And flight crew, you know, people.
Well,
with-
because they missed the flight.
yeah, that would not be good. But you got to do it. If only there is a better way to do it, but it will be wonderful eventually.
Let's go back to that dialogue about the Whitestone and
Sure.
Throgs Neck bridges. Now, Whitestone feeds from the Hutchinson River Parkway. I guess it's coming also from the Bruckner comes that
Right.
way.
And 95. Well, I guess the Hutch
yeah,
is 95.
right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And it's a daily mess. Is that one of those problems that the cashless tolls will solve? And then of course ongoing construction on the Whitestone. I mean, it's
A lot of the construction has to do with them putting in the cashless tolling gantries. Now,
I see.
yeah, and now if you've got Easy Pass, you have to get to the far left. If you've got cash, you've got to go to the right. And the lanes are kind of dog-legged, you know, they jog to the left, they go through, and then they jog back to the right, and they're all merging. It's very confusing. It's very bad right now. I went over there, I guess, about a month ago.
Right.
It should be getting better just about every day. They're also redoing the pavement itself because, you know, once you have this cashless tolling thing, people will be just going through, flying through, and you won't be, maybe not flying through, but they won't be able to close the road up as easily as they are doing it now.
We look at, for example, public housing, and this is well out of your realm, but you know the estimate on the amount of money needed to fix public housing is $15 billion. Nobody expects a cash payout of $15 billion, but it was a guide to say how desperate the situation is. If I were to talk to you and say, aside from the cashless tolls, which is an improvement, whether how much money or how much infrastructure improvement do we need to keep pace with the kind of growth? Do you have either a number or a way of characterizing what we need?
Well, we did a study a couple of months ago, and we looked at the road in general as far as safety is concerned. Of the 35 OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and
So we're
Development.
talking about the main roads
Top-
like
right.
in the Bronx, the
Well,
ones that I've mentioned.
But of the top 35 countries in the world,
Okay.
the United States ranks number 33rd as far as safety is concerned.
Safety on roadways
Right.
because
Deaths
of the way
per
that
100,000.
I see.
Per 100,000 population. The reason is a lot of the infrastructure is really not up to date. And we estimated that if you spent $14.6 billion.
Okay, so the number is
right?
14.6.
$14.6
I knew I'd get a number out of it.
Yeah, roughly 14.6% of what the Trump administration wants to spend, of the $1 trillion that the Trump administration wants to spend, that you could save 600,000, you could prevent 600,000 injuries and save over 7,000 to 8,000 lives over the next 5 years.
How would that be? Of course, that would only create more construction nightmares, and nobody wants to talk about that. But how would that be applied? You're talking about literally redoing roadways, redoing the Bruckner or something?
The main thing would be adding roundabouts at intersections where they would be necessary, at those crash-prone
So we're talking
intersections.
interior places as
Right.
opposed to like on the corner of Fordham and Webster, or the area which is an absolute nightmare, Marshall Parkway that gets down toward the Botanical Garden. I mean, you're talking 25 minutes just to go 300 yards.
Roundabouts enable the traffic to continue to move, and it channels vehicles into each other at an angle. You don't have those 90-degree crashes, the so-called T-bone crashes. So that would help reduce those deaths and injuries that take place at intersections. We're also talking about roadside improvements, and I thought it wasn't a problem until we came out with the study, and I'm driving along looking at various roadsides, and many of them lack guardrails. In fact, the police officer that was killed in New Jersey, the stretch of roadway where he was killed, there was no guardrail. And when there is no guardrail, if it's raining, snowing, icy, something like that, you slide off the road, you're going to hit an object. Objects like trees. You might even hit a hill.
Or go
an
over
embankment.
a hill.
Yeah, which is going to make the vehicle roll over. Very dangerous situation.
And so more of those kinds of things.
More of those things. Widen the shoulders, create shoulders, pave the shoulders, put the guardrails, get rid of those. Anything over a diameter of 13 inches should be eliminated from the side of the road. Poles, trees, those other kinds of things.
Fascinating. In the Bronx right now, we're all very proud of the amount of development that's going on. There's a lot of development going on. One of the most exciting developments, I think many people would agree, is the Hutch Metro Center, which is obviously on the side of the Hutchinson River Parkway. It was constructed without any consideration for the roads. The Hutch is the same Hutch. The entrance road to Waters Place is the same. So at 4:30, and for anybody who's been in that area, and we have a tremendous amount of business there, whether it be restaurants, we have LA Fitness there, not to mention Montefiore Medical Center has a facility there. BronxNet has a facility there. Mercy College has a facility. So at 4:30 in the afternoon, all of those people in those towers come out and go down a roadway that backs up. You got, again, another 20, 25 minutes just to get past the red light. And then you're in an area under Westchester Avenue that...
There's 2 lanes in that area?
That's 2 lanes, that's under the L, people going to, south on the Hutch, then people going north on the Hutch, not to mention the normal Westchester Avenue traffic. So you can tell I've been in that spot because I do come from the Bronx Buzz, which we shoot at Mercy College. So my question is, are there places somewhere in New York, in the world, where they do the planning for the roadway along with the development? But it seems we're so excited to do the developments that we do them just like Yankee Stadium and then wonder, gee whiz, how should we deal with the traffic? And now we've got years of traffic before they figure out what to do with that area.
The main problem you're dealing with is that you're trying to foist new construction onto old roadways. We're talking about
infrastructure.
Old infrastructure. I mean, the Hutch, we're talking about a roadway that was probably built in the 1930s, which means it was designed in the late 20s, early 30s, before modern transportation engineering existed. So you've got the abutments for overpasses right next to lanes of travel. Just a slight slide, in a bad weather, rainy or something, and you're going to hit a major piece of infrastructure, and it's not yielding. And let's not forget the trucks. There's no commercial traffic, and yet we still see the problem with trucks getting onto that roadway all the time, striking the overpasses, out-of-town truck drivers not using commercial GPS.
How many times you put the sign up?
Yeah.
When we talk about infrastructure, does, whether it be political infrastructure or the urban planning infrastructure exist to do these things, or is that really going to have to come out of the state or advocacy out of the AAA?
Oh, we know what to do, we just don't have the money. It is tremendously expensive. The American Highway Users Alliance 2 years ago came out with a bottleneck study. I think 6 of the 100 in the country were right here. George Washington Bridge, the Cross Manhattan Expressway, the Cross Bronx Expressway, the BQE, the Van Wyck Expressway. We know where the problems are. We just don't
Don't-
have.
it's a matter of
We
cash.
say we don't have the money.
Right. Well, on that note, literally just today,
Mm-hmm.
it was put out that there's a new proposal for congestion
Right.
pricing. They were going to, let's see, Move New York is proposing $2.75 fees on cars entering Manhattan in the business zones below 60th Street. Does
Right.
AAA support congestion pricing?
It would do nothing to alleviate congestion.
But would it raise some of the money?
They say $1.9 billion. Our problems are much greater than that. You know, we need, the federal government has to get involved. You know, we need these major infrastructure projects and we need that funding. The way they happened back in the 1930s and the 1940s when Roosevelt, a New Yorker, was president is probably the way they need to happen again. Now they're talking about financing them, the government will put up $200 billion and then we have public-private partnerships that'll take care of the rest and corporations doing it. You know, we don't know if that's the way to go.
Right. So the congestion pricing you think is in essence a red
No,
herring?
it's a political non-starter. It won't raise the necessary amount of money. Professor Falcocchio at the technical school in Brooklyn has said that in order for congestion pricing to work, the fee has to be punitive. It has to be really heavy, $8,
to
$9,
stop
$10,
somebody from going.
$12.
You know,
Yeah.
and I would add, and again, this would this would take us into another 2-hour show. Then you have to get it, because if you do that, then you've got to improve the MTA and you've got to improve your train, especially train, but your train and
Well,
bus
look at the new
infrastructure,
Second
which right now we don't have.
It's not efficient. The new Second Avenue subway is purported to be the most expensive piece of public transportation, subway infrastructure in the world. But it's what, 2 miles long? So if we're spending that kind of money to build 2 miles of subway, that's not efficient. We can't keep doing it at those rates. Now, it's a handy piece of infrastructure. It's necessary, good to have it, but it's too expensive.
Governor proposed $1.5 billion to take down the Sheridan Expressway, which has been dubbed the highway to nowhere.
Right.
Here's the feedback that I've heard from people in the Bronx. That's nice. We like it. We definitely want the nicer vistas. We'd like to have a nice boulevard, maybe like you have on the west side. But are we going to eliminate any of the trucks that go in there? Is that going to improve, certain aspects of life in the Bronx?
Major connector between the Hunts Point Market and the Cross Bronx Expressway. They're going to make it a boulevard, and it's going to have 2 crosswalks,
Okay.
medians. You know, it'll be lovely landscaping.
Well,
and
listen,
that kind of thing.
I'm not going to. I mean, I'm not going to, thumb my nose at that.
Right.
That's worthwhile for the Bronx.
But are you going to eliminate the trucks? And that doesn't seem like it's feasible because you're not going to move the Hunts Point Market. Those trucks still have to get in and out of there. And the rates of asthma around that roadway, around many roadways in the Bronx, are kind of higher than the proportional representation for the rest of the city.
There's a big debate and controversy in the north part of the Bronx over North Broadway. Pedestrians have been getting killed. It's a very wide roadway. For folks who know about it, it's right next to the Van Cortlandt Parade Grounds, which is one of the the most well-known cross-country tracks in the country. So there's track meets, buses, drop off people to to run track and all that kind of stuff. One of the proposals is to narrow the roadway from and put other things, bike lanes or other things. I thought that was not going to work because if you narrow the roadway, you're still going to have track teams. There's no way you're stopping those buses from dropping the athletes off. Is that the kind of a solution that can work to ease traffic and help the process?
It is impossible to make a blanket statement to say that a particular area, a certain thing will help. You have to do engineering studies. You have to have traffic engineers, and Sam Schwartz is among them, and he used to be traffic commissioner, and he talks about how he had to install P lights, politician lights.
Captain Gridlock or something? What was his name?
Gridlock Sam.
Gridlock Sam.
Gridlock Sam. You have to do the engineering studies to make sure that these things will work. It's fairly easily done if you have the right people, the right equipment, the computers and what have you. You can't make a blanket statement and say that we're going to do this here without having put the effort in of doing the studies. Studies cost money, they take time, but that's what's necessary to do them right.
Is your impression, the AAA's impression, that we do enough of those, or we don't really, in other words, we kind of have, nothing against my community board friends, we have community boards saying this is what should be done without necessarily getting real traffic engineers?
That might be a problem. I can't make.
don't wanna make a statement.
I can't say whether or not that's the case
Got it.
with all these projects that have been done.
You guys, specifically the AAA, put out something recently about teen drivers. I mean,
Yes.
it's a little
Yeah.
off the topic of roads, but I know that you and your colleagues think this is a vital issue to keeping people safe, so let's just address that.
Well, we are now in the midst of the 100 deadliest days of the year. Those 100 days between Memorial Day and Labor Day. The teens, high school and college students are out of school, and they get out on the roadways, and there are 15% greater number of crashes during that time of year involving teen drivers compared to the rest of the year. A teen driver aged 16 and 17 is 320% more likely to die in a fatal crash
Oh my goodness.
compared to an adult driver aged 30 to 59. Three major problems.
Go ahead.
They're distracted.
I was going to say they must be distracted with
Distractions, yeah.
texting or phones or
Yeah,
whatever.
other people in the vehicle. That's number one. Other teens in the vehicle. They're driving without their seatbelts. 60% of the time when a teen dies in a crash, they're not wearing their seatbelt. 30% of the crashes is excessive speed for what's safe for the conditions.
Right.
So we have to have that conversation. We have to work with our young people. Parents have to
This-
model
this
good
to me
behavior.
Is a message for parents
Yeah.
to the degree they can. We know that teens can be, difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Robert, real quick, last note was you put out a child safety seat thing. You
Yes.
like or don't like what we've done with child safety seats?
The law in New York says that your children have to be in a seat up to age 4, but it does not distinguish between rear-facing or forward-facing. It should be rear-facing. If you think about it, if you're in a crash forward-facing seat, child is going to be thrown
And that's
forward.
for both
head's
the
going to
front and
snap.
back seats.
For the back seat, certainly for the front, but you don't want to put a child seat in the front seat because that's where the
That's
airbag
right.
is.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, Robert, never enough time.
No,
Always
it
more
flies
roads
by.
and road problems than we could deal with. We love having you here.
Thanks
you so
very
much.
much.
Robert
Good to be
Sinclair
here.
from the AAA, and the website is
AAA.com.
AAA.com, and send Robert an email and tell him how much you like him, like I do.
Nice.
Folks, if you have further questions or comments on anything you heard on tonight's show, or any roadway you want some more information about, or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at BronxTalk@BronxNet.org. You can send us a tweet at BronxTalk or post them on our Facebook page, and we'll read them on the air during a future edition of our program. You can check out our archives at BronxNet.org. Find Bronx Talk on the lower right navigation bar. And we will see you next week. We thank our producer is Lindsay and our director is Brianna. The cast of thousands. We have some new young people who are with us tonight. And we'll see you next week.
It's not always easy being a dad,
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family?
This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
but when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry.
Go long, son!
it's always worth it.
Whoa! Master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.